All right, welcome everybody. Tom Zenner here, Sports Now, episode number 12 on Valuetainment Sports. Thanks so much for joining us. We did not do a show last week, but we're back at it today. Zach Parker and I. Zach, good to see you.
Good to see you.
You and me, man, just a two-man show today. I like it.
I don't
have to be like a traffic cop going back and forth and back and forth like that. So
quality time.
How's life in Florida? Making the adjustment from California, from LA?
Trying to. Still, the sports thing, man.
I know, it's crazy.
Can dig the weather, dig the beach. People are great. It's the late night sports, man.
Well, if you're a big sports fan, I'm assuming you are. It's just totally different, right? We talked about this before, but it gets me into our first topic too. The World Series has started now, and as a baseball fan, you're a baseball fan. I watched every game the Dodgers played leading up to this, right? I either watched it or listened to Charlie Steiner on AM 570 in Los Angeles. I was really, really into it. But now the World Series is starting, and to be honest with you, I mean, I feel bad saying this, but I could really care less. It's very low on my priority list as far as if I want to watch a World Series. Now, part of it is the matchup. I don't care for the Astros. I like the Braves. I think they're a great story, a phenomenal team. But what is it, Zach? Do you look at baseball right now as a national sport? Or is this more of a regional team? Is the World Series really only going to appeal if you've got some vested interest in one of those two teams that's in it? Because I'm as big of a sports fan as you can possibly be, and I don't really care. I mean, the Dodgers aren't in it or a team I really like, so I don't. And, Rob Manfred is aware of this because we'll get into some of the things he's been saying this week, just how they do market their game. But how do you look at baseball? Are you into it? Do you care? Are you going to watch the World Series regardless?
I think if you would have asked me 2 weeks ago, I would say it's a national event, but I'm exactly like you are. I was following the Dodgers, and I'm still sort of in this post-Dodger series hangover.
Yeah.
I've seen the highlights of yesterday, but I think you're right, man. I think there's just, I'll probably watch it as we get closer, knowing that it's just going to be the last few games of baseball we see this year. But in terms of being, truly vested and it's must-see TV, I'm not there.
I don't want to hammer MLB because the product is great. If you watch baseball and you see how good these baseball players are, how skilled they are, how good the playoffs were, they should be grabbing us by the throat and doing everything they can where we wouldn't want to miss 1 minute of this action. And they don't do it. They don't market it at all. There's no promotion. There's no buzz. There's no excitement. There is 10 times more excitement for the Thursday night NFL game coming up between Green Bay and Arizona than there is between Houston and Atlanta in the World Series. And that's too bad. But that's just the way it is. Their ratings, about 10 million for game one. Now, if you want to compare that to other sports, a Monday Night Football game, just a regular Monday Night Football game on ESPN is going to get 14 million. You're going to get 18 million for a normal Thursday night game. So they don't get the numbers, but they could do a better job. They have major stars, extremely exciting players. Their marketing just isn't there.
No, I agree. I consider myself a big baseball fan like yourself, and there's players that are all-stars. I'll watch the All-Star game or I'll watch highlights, and 10 of the All-Stars, I have no clue who they are. Never heard their name. And they're All-Stars.
Yeah.
So I feel that way. I mean, I think, what do you do? How do you get people out there and create the buzz around these individuals, even if it's not about their on-game performance? How do you just make them celebrities? How do you make them people of interest?
Well, their play speaks for itself, so I don't think they have to do anything with that. But I think they could be marketing this World Series as good versus evil. You got Houston in there yet again, trying to win a World Series the legal way if they possibly can, if they are not cheating right now. Why not have some fun with that? The good guys versus the bad guys. The Houston Stars, Altuve isn't someone that everybody's going to get excited about. You're not going to gravitate towards him. You did that maybe in 2017, but that story is a little bit old. But I don't know. It seems like they don't even try. And here's a quote from Rob Manfred. This is what he said this week. Quote, "We don't market our game on a nationwide basis. Ours is an everyday game. You've got to sell tickets every single day to the fans in that market, and there are all sorts of differences between the regions in terms of how the teams are marketed." Now, he was talking about the Braves and condoning the fact that he's not, he's okay with their name in the tomahawk chop, so they weren't making a huge deal out of that, and they're not going to try to get them to change their name. But I just find it interesting. We're in the middle of this World Series after a great playoff run, but if you don't have the Yankees, if you don't have the Dodgers, you don't have the Cubs, you're going to have a problem, and they do.
It's wild. I was thinking that the other day watching the Braves, Dodgers, and the cancel culture stuff, right? All the Washington stuff. And then you're watching, and it's the Braves, and they're doing the old school tomahawk chalk, and I'm like, why? Like, who gets the free pass?
Yeah.
Why? Like, none of it makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think I think baseball is in this weird phase, this transitional phase, right? You see it in sort of every industry. It's like it was them for 100 years, right? Like, why would you innovate when you're at the top, right? And all these other leagues have had to come around in other sports, and they've done all these crazy things, and now they've been left behind. Like, I feel like baseball is like the taxi industry, and other sports are like Uber. And now they're like, okay, well, we used to not have to do anything. What do we do now? And they're sort of caught behind. And I don't know what the answer is, but they better hurry up.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I can't remember the last time I met somebody under the age of 20 that was like primarily a baseball fan.
Hey, we got to go watch the game tonight. We got to watch the World Series. Here's one of their problems. In the NBA and the NFL, you cannot win a championship without the biggest stars. Period. In the NBA, you got to have 2, maybe 3 superstars in the NBA to even be in the conversation to win the championship. NFL too. It's come down to a battle of who's the best quarterback, essentially. That's what's going to win you the Super Bowl right now in this day and age. But in Major League Baseball, you're talking about a guy like Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, maybe 2 of the greatest players of all time. They might not ever play a playoff game in our lifetime, other than Trout was in one series and that was it. But here you have the biggest stars, and baseball can win without them. So that's the difference. It's 9 guys. It's getting a hot bullpen. If it's 1 or 2 batters that can carry you in a low-scoring game, that's what it is.
Well, that's and the way the game's played now, it's even with baseball. It's more the stars in baseball get nullified more, I think, than any other sport. Because when you look at a lineup, it's like, I used to argue all the time people about A-Rod being a choker, people being chokers in the playoffs. But it's like I never looked at it that way because as a team, it's like, okay, we're playing the Yankees. A-Rod is not going to beat us. And that's why I think you see David Eckstein is the MVP of a World Series. And you get these sort of no-name guys because they get the opportunities because they pitch around the other guys. And as you know, the game is now, it has become boring in terms because the playoffs and especially the World Series is all about bullpen, right?
Oh, it's boring, man. It's all situational. It's guys that are throwing sliders that you can't touch or fastballs that you can't see. I mean, there's no offensive explosions.
That.
Yeah, I know.
You see a guy coming in throwing a 95-mile slider just 15 in a row. Like, it's not – so, I mean, it's hard to even talk about right now. But when what's-his-face came in for the Braves, 2 runners on second, third, no outs, and just punched out the side to kind of end the hopes for the
Astros. Yeah, there's no sex appeal either in baseball. At least you have cheerleaders in the NBA and NFL football where you can maybe bring in a casual fan. But anyway, that's our baseball talk for the night. But, you really can't say. You ask anybody, they couldn't tell you. You walk down the street, you couldn't find anyone here in Miami or in Chicago or Detroit or Minneapolis or Dallas, wherever you go, that could name 3 players probably on either of those 2 teams.
Yeah.
So there's just no great appeal for that. Is what it is. Now, the NFL is the exact opposite. So let's talk about that for a second. And right now, man, we're in the midst of just an unbelievable NFL season. They never have to worry about ratings. I mentioned this earlier, about 15 million viewers they'll get for a Monday night game. Just any old Monday night game, right? Across the board on ESPN. And you have multiple options. You can watch Eli and Peyton Manning breaking it down, and then you can watch the main crew, too, on ESPN. A Thursday night game, they'll probably get over 20 million for this Thursday night game on NBC or on Fox. Who's carrying it? Fox? Fox and the NFL Network, right, on Thursday Night Football?
Yep.
And it's a great matchup. It's the Cardinals, undefeated Cardinals against the once beaten Packers. So it's unbelievable. And it got me thinking, right now there's maybe 7 or 8 teams that have a chance to win the Super Bowl. That's it. That's all you have, really 5, 6, 7, 8, and you have to have a great quarterback. Here's the teams out of the 32, Zach, that I would say have a chance to win the Super Bowl. Just any chance at all. And you can forget about anybody that isn't on this list. The Rams, the Bucks, the Titans, the Bills, Cowboys, Packers, and then I'd put Baltimore, probably not. I don't know if Baltimore's really got a chance to win it this year. Cincinnati, great season, leading their division. Doubtful if they're a Super Bowl contender. Pittsburgh, no way, not with Roethlisberger. Chargers, close, but not really quite there. So what's your opinion? What is going to get the team over the hump? Is it a great quarterback or is it a great coach? You're not always going to have a combo of the two. But what if you had your favorite team and you had the choice of one or the other, would you pick a great quarterback or a great coach right now?
I think at the end of the day, I think I have to go with the coach because so many, even the great quarterback games, it still comes down to managing timeouts, field goal kickers getting in the right situation, handling punts the right way, 4th downs. I mean, you obviously need the guy to execute, but if you're not putting them in a situation to succeed, it just nullifies the talent, with the ball in their hand.
Yeah. I'll disagree. I'll say it's quarterbacks. Here, let's play this little game. Let's say, are there more crappy quarterbacks in the NFL out of the 32 teams right now, or crappy coaches? I'll go first. Bar none, there are far more terrible head coaches in the NFL than quarterbacks. I'm going to name them for you too. There's about 7 guys that are head coaches in the NFL that I have no idea how they got the job, how they were able to impress a team owner and general manager and get this gig. These are 7 guys that when they're fired, not if, but when they are fired, they will not get a second chance in the NFL. And Zach, you can correct me if you think I'm wrong here, but let me give you this list. Nick Sirianni of the Eagles. Really? I mean, we all know that was a mistake when they hired him. Saleh for the Jets. Not a fan. I mean, a coordinator at best. Joe Judge for the Giants. You got David Culley for the Texans, who they just, I don't know if he won a lottery or something to get that job. Nobody even knew who he was. He wasn't even a coordinator when he got that job. Dan Tears Campbell, 0-7. He's done. Vic Fangio is not the real deal for the Broncos. And Brian Flores, really disappointing me. Just another one of those Bill Belichick disciples that can't coach in the NFL as a head coach. So that's your list of bad coaches that will not get another chance. And then I put the retread list, guys in the middle that they could win a Super Bowl with a miracle, like with a great quarterback catching lightning in a bottle. Tell me what you think of this list. Ron Rivera, okay? I consider him maybe a little bit above average, but would need a great quarterback to win. Mike Zimmer, Vikings, the quarterback or the coach now for the Raiders that took over for John Gruden. And I put one more name in this list, Bill Belichick, where he needs a great quarterback to begin to win a Super Bowl. Without it, he's got no chance. And everybody continues to laugh at me whenever I say something about this, about Bill Belichick. And it's nothing personal. But, I mean, there is so much more evidence backing up what I say. He's now 17 games under 500 after beating the Jets without Tom Brady. So, yes, I put him in this list of, pretty good coaches in the NFL that would need a miracle or a great quarterback to win a Super Bowl. By the way, I've noticed some things with Belichick too. I think he's hired a PR agency. I really do. I think he's launched a PR campaign to try to make himself a little bit more human this year. I don't know if you noticed it, but he was patting everybody on the butt after the game against the Jets. He was shaking everybody's hand. And then there's some strategic stories that come out. I saw this story that came out this week where he apparently hands out the green balls, they call them. It's bundled up wads of cash that he would pay underpaid coaches who he hired. He called these guys, they have nicknames on the Patriots staff. They're either called the 2020s because they're making $20,000 a year and working 20 hours a day, or PhDs. I forgot what the acronym was for. I'll come up with it. But they've got, these guys are just grinding and making no money. But I don't know. Anyway, that's my Belichick rant for the day. And then you got a list of coaches who are good that could win a Super Bowl on their own if they already haven't, and that's Arians, Stefanski, I like him, coach for the Cleveland Browns, Matt LaFleur, Andy Reid, Matt Rule, Sean McDermott, Sean McVay, and John Harbaugh. Those are the coaches that will probably end up with at least one Super Bowl title in their career. They're young enough, they're talented enough, they're in great situations where they could do it.
Okay, so I'm going to agree with you with the caveat that I don't know if it's terrible head coaches, but and I'm not by no means my NFL guy, but I feel like we are in this weird little transition period with the NFL, where the style of game is changing. And so we're getting a lot of experiments with coaches and bringing people in and front office people, seeing sort of how baseball has changed with analytics. And, if you start following the analytics, you see all these like Texas high school coaches that, the guys that like never punt, always go for two.
Gimmicks.
Yeah, the gimmick stuff, but also the analytics say you should do that. And when I watch the game, I just see things that I haven't seen in my whole life, like a lot of going for it on fourth downs that you would never have seen 10 years ago. And I think we're sort of in this experimental phase where people are giving, I think as a coach, you might be able to go into a boardroom and talk some people in to hiring you.
Okay. Sales job, basically.
Truly. I think you can weasel your way into a situation based off smooth talking, as opposed to somebody who has the street cred, the proofs in the pudding, the background. So I don't know if they're just terrible head coaches or if they're just kind of in this weird zone of what the NFL is going to be in 10 years compared to what it was 10 years ago.
That's a really good point. that you could treat it almost like you're going in there to just sell this guy, bamboozle him essentially, bring in a lot of data and some ideas. I think the guy that did that perfectly is the coach for the Cowboys, Mike McCarthy. He took a year off. He tried to reinvent himself as this guru of analytics, right? He got Peter King to write that extensive story on him, said that he's completely changed, and it worked. I mean, that was a great job by him. And if you talk to anybody that follows the Cowboys, that's the one link that they think is a little weak on that team. Yeah. Can they win a Super Bowl in spite of Mike McCarthy? They might be able to. I mean, they look really good this year so far. But you know what? You can't fake it forever, though. And there will come a time where there'll be that one decision that they have to make. Or if you're terrible at clock management, which he is very, very below average managing that clock. Some guys just don't know how to do it. They just don't have the instinct. They don't have that gut reaction of knowing exactly when to call that timeout or how to really milk that 2-minute warning.
For sure.
Right? And there's a skill to it and an experience, and he should be able to do it, and he can't. But I get that, man. I guess you could go in there, and these owners, they've been bad for years. Their teams are irrelevant. They want to believe it. It's almost like a evangelical or something. You buy into it. And most of these guys that are the kind of the fraudulent head coaches, the Dan Campbells of the world, the Eagles coach, some of these guys, they're so high energy and it's so fake. But for about 2 or 3 hours when you're doing that interview, you could imagine an owner, a billionaire, just buying into all of it because it's radically different.
Well, it's Moneyball, right? It's sort of like the NFL's version of that, where they're trying to take risks. They're trying to bring in something that's going to get them an edge. And I think it's just going to take a while for the chips to fall out and things to kind of get more settled into how the game's going to be played going forward.
Yeah, and you mentioned that so many teams are going for it on fourth down, and the analytics are driving that a little bit, but so is the fact that it's such an offensive league where the averages are stacked in your favor of getting 1 or 2 yards. Right? If that strong safety can't come up and wallop someone going across the middle, you've got a good chance of a little crossing pattern picking up 3 yards or sitting down in the middle of a zone and getting 5 yards on 4th and 5. So, I like it. Gerard, who's on the podcast regularly, he prefers the NFL of the 90s where people were destroying each other. You can't run across the middle as a wide receiver. You get those alligator arms, you're going to get annihilated.
For sure.
I like it now. The more offense, the better. I like keeping the star players healthy. There's nothing worse when the great players can't play and can't perform. And as a fan, if your star players are out, you got no chance. So I love the direction that the NFL has gone in. I think it's a much more viewer-friendly sport. The camera angles just make the experience so unbelievable. That pylon cam that they introduced like in the last few years, it's unbelievable. Yeah. It's unbelievable. You don't miss anything.
Yeah.
And now the stadiums are getting more modern, but the game is phenomenal. But it still comes down to the fact that if you don't have a really good quarterback, you're screwed. You got no chance. So here's the list of the elite quarterbacks. This is the only list. If you're on this list, you got a chance to win the Super Bowl. If you don't, your team has no shot. Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, Aaron Rodgers, Mahomes, still, I think, right? Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. Love Joe Burrow. Oh, yeah. He's gonna collect a few Super Bowls before it's over. And Matthew Stafford. Those are the guys that can win you a Super Bowl this year. Here's the ones that can't. I don't think Tannehill. Maybe. He's the one I would say because of a good defense, because of a good coach in Vrabel for Tennessee, he might be able to do it.
Well, that's so if you don't have a great quarterback, that's what you need, right?
A little combo.
Is a fantastic defensive line that can get to the other team's elite quarterback because there's not going to be two mediocre quarterbacks, but you're somebody that can just manage the game, right? Not make mistakes, keep the team in the game.
Yeah, and that's that middle of the pack list, like Tannehill, Garoppolo. He's already taken a team to the Super Bowl, didn't win it. Kirk Cousins could probably do it, with a great defense. Roethlisberger, now at the end of his career, maybe he needs so much luck, but he needs something like that to help him. Jared Goff got to a Super Bowl, didn't win one. Mac Jones, I think, could do it. I think he could bring a team there or get there eventually, maybe 3 or 4 years from now. And then Trevor Lawrence, I think the jury's out, but I think he's going to be a really good quarterback too. So you got those, and then you got some of these young ones that it'd be a little tough if this was your team, if Davis Mills, Tua, Tyler Heineke, Geno Smith, Sam Darnold, Jalen Hurts, Jameis Winston, Zach Wilson, and Justin Fields. They're the ones that there is a significant drop-off in the NFL with some of these quarterbacks, which is surprising. I think people expected more out of Justin Fields for one thing, right? I mean, especially when you see young quarterbacks come in and just tear it up, like a Kyler Murray and what Lamar Jackson did his rookie year. You don't. There's no room for patience anymore. Who wants to wait 3 years for a quarterback to develop? Give it to me now.
How many years was Rodgers under Favre before he? I mean,
probably 4.
I mean, think about that. 4 more years on that guy's career potentially.
Now the good thing is that's wear and tear that he didn't have to take for 4 years. So who knows? In this day and age, he could play till 45
for sure. No, It's wild to see, but it's so much about right place, right time. I mean, it's just you get with the right team, and you get in early, and you have a good enough offensive line to give you enough time to learn defenses, read defenses, make plays, and then other guys come in and just it's just tough, man. It's just being thrown into the fire like that for the wrong team is just, it's career ending potentially.
Yeah, then you just got to make all the right decisions like Tom Brady, picking that right team after you leave New England and finding that right coach, a great defense, and all the elements that are right there in Tampa for him. Now he leads the NFL in touchdown passes. You can just tell Brady wants MVP so bad.
Yeah.
He's putting some distance between him and the rest of the league with his stats, and you could clearly tell he wants that MVP trophy. And if he doesn't get hurt, he's going to get it. He is the MVP this year. His numbers are insane. 4 more touchdowns the other day, including the 600th. Did you follow the saga about the 600th ball?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is classic. So, and just it epitomizes how Brady has changed so much, right? You get him out of that terrible atmosphere that he had. It was almost like a prison camp playing for Bill Belichick in New England. Now he can be free. It's almost like a new lease on life, and he's got a personality, and he's funny, and he's lovable.
But I think you can't script a better career than Tom Brady's, because it's like you sort of needed all of that time to be able to become Tom Brady, and then let the personality and the flair kind of come out, right? If that comes out too early, it's not received well.
Or if you had to deal with 20 years of that type of personality, it would wear you out as a consumer, as a fan. 100%. Right? I think that's why it's so fresh right now, because we haven't seen it before.
Exactly. I think we feel like you just said, he's been caged, and it's cool
prison
to see
camp.
this side of him. It's
like he was in.
It couldn't be better. Like
Siberia.
Honestly, you look at if his career was a movie, you wouldn't believe it. It's so kind of astonishing to watch. But real quick, I want to talk the Mac Jones thing. Like when we haven't talked about it, but when Brady played the Patriots in that really tight game, like people talked about Mac Jones being the next thing, but some were unimpressed. To me, it felt like classic Brady his first couple years. Like he was just getting it done, right? He wasn't asked to do too much. He did the simple things and slowly got let off the leash. Like, do you see Mac Jones being like following in the footsteps? Not obviously, right. You can't say he's going to follow in the career, but like somebody that could lead a team and be a top tier quarterback?
No, I don't. I don't. I think he's going to be good, but I think that's asking way too much, because there was just too many moments with Brady that were just magical that you can only get from a certain few athletes, and he was one of them. He got the younger version of Bill Belichick. He came into the league where he didn't have to be an offensive firepower, sure. Right? I mean, you could get away throwing for 235 yards in a game. Don't turn the ball over. Let your defense win it. Now it's the exact opposite. And Brady's just got so much experience right now, and he just knows how to stay healthy. I like Mac Jones. I think he's in an impossible situation, and there is no way in hell that New England can recreate that success that they had. I mean, Bill Belichick's desperate just to get to the playoffs. And in the AFC, there's some teams that are going to be in his way. He's not going to have home field advantage. They're 3-4 now. They were 2-4. Now they're 3-4. And they acted like they won the Super Bowl and they beat the Jets. I still don't think the Patriots are very good. But I give Mac Jones credit, because that's a difficult situation to go into. And he's handling it well, and he's doing what he's asked of so far. But man, he just will not be. I don't think he wins a Super Bowl in his career. At least not in New England.
Yeah.
So the thing with Brady, Mike Evans scores 3 touchdowns, right? So Brady throws for 4, including his 600th, right? So the only quarterback ever, and he'll probably be the only one. Can you imagine? We should do the numbers sometime just to see what Mahomes would have to do at his current pace just to even catch Brady. And how could you even stay interested in playing that long? I mean, Brady is just 1 in a billion. So he's over 600 now in his touchdown passes, and Mike Evans gave the ball during the game to a fan, which is what he does, right?
Yeah.
I remember back in the day, if you threw the ball into the crowd or you got rid of it, it's a $500 fine.
Yeah.
So I guess he doesn't mind, right?
Yeah.
So he didn't remember that was the record-setting ball for Brady, so he hands it to this guy named Brian Kennedy. And this guy's happy as hell. He's got this ball, probably thinking this thing's worth some money. But then they start freaking out on the Bucs sideline, and they go, "We got to go get this ball. This thing is valuable." Brady wants it. He wants it in his trophy case. So the equipment manager goes and starts the negotiations, and kudos to him, man. That poor guy Kennedy got sucked in. He was seduced by Brady because he gave up that ball way too easy. The estimates are that ball is worth $500,000. Brady said he should have held on to it a little bit longer and negotiated a little bit stronger, but they gave him a $1,000 gift card at the team shop, and I think maybe an autographed hat and maybe a couple other things. But then Brady steps up and gives the kid a Bitcoin, right, worth about $60,000. So, I mean, everything he does now is a huge event, a story,
for sure.
Subplots. It's crazy.
It's like the last couple of years, with Bonds whenever they were having to use special balls with the holograms on them. Like, he was just making history every time out. Here's my question. So I didn't watch the game. Which touchdown of the 4 was it?
I think it was the third.
Okay, so after the second, there had to have been a
reminder,
599th career touchdown sign. Like for Evans to just, I mean, I don't know. It sounds on brand, to be honest, but it's.
I mean, it's kind of a big thing to screw up. Like, how would you not know in the back of your mind?
For sure.
You would think, right?
You would think. Like, I know you get caught in the moment, but I'm sure Brady and everybody must have just been watching and been like, no, he's not going to do. What's he doing? He's doing it again, and then just throws the ball up there. So
now, I don't know if he hand selects like special fans or everyone. I know Brady handed his cap to a kid that had beat cancer, and it was a touching moment. Kid broke down and was crying. It was really cool. I don't know if Mike Evans just randomly hands these maybe to hotties that he wants to meet or something. I'm not sure.
Maybe Evans had a deal with the guy and said, "I'm going to throw you this ball, and we're going to split whatever ransom you get."
Let's see.
From
Bitcoin's
Brady.
worth $65,000 right now.
Exactly.
We'll 30 grand. Yeah,
you're going to give me half of that, okay?
So the other thing Brady does so well compared to other quarterbacks is you never hear anything from Giselle. She kind of knows her role and just doesn't say anything and make any news, unlike some of these other quarterbacks. Have you noticed that these younger quarterbacks, Baker Mayfield's wife, spouting off a few weeks ago, even Patrick Mahomes' fiance, what is in these fiance/wives feeling that they have to protect their man on Twitter? It's obnoxious. I mean, can you imagine the grief these guys probably get in the locker room?
I can only imagine you stay away from that in the locker room, but just the conversations on the way home after the game, right? Please stop. Like,
you would think,
I love
right?
you, babe, but stay off Twitter. Like, what is? I mean, I get it though, right? Like, even when people go after some of my favorite players, I get fired up. But like, you're. And to be fair, Giselle had a couple incidents, didn't she, back in the day?
Yeah, but she was protecting him just like these wives generally. That's what gets them in trouble is when they're sticking up and they get emotional. And she did the same thing. I think she got annoyed a little bit about just the culture around the Patriots team and maybe him being not appreciated like he should have been.
Yeah, I don't know. It's I like standing up for your man, but it's Twitter and who knows? It might not be. It might be auditioning for real NFL housewives or something. So I don't think these days what it's coming from. But if I get the instinct to stand by your man, but I think
just don't do it. If your man's an NFL quarterback, he can handle himself
for sure.
It's hurting the Mahomes and Baker Mayfield brand.
Truly, especially Mahomes. You're an owner of a franchise, a baseball. Like you're not just the quarterback anymore.
His head's probably spinning a little bit because this year is nothing like what he's experienced the last 3 or 4 years, and I think he kind of thought that I'm on autopilot right now. This is how I play. Guys are always going to get open. I'm going to always get the protection. I can just flick it out there however I want, and it is just not working. They're 1 or 2 games away from being done.
Yeah.
Like where you're in such a hole, you can't dig out of it. Everybody keeps saying, they're going to figure it out. There's 17 games. They're still going to be all right. I don't think so. At this point, after 7 games, you kind of are what you are. There's no proverbial switch you just go flip and turn into a very, very good team when you're turning the ball over, making mistakes, just looking nothing like they have the last 3 or 4 years. They're not a factor in the AFC right now at all.
No, and it's we talked about it, I think, a few weeks ago. It was just the law of percentages. Like, you cannot play like that for so long without bad things happening. And it's just we're sort of getting the overcompensation of the other side of it, right? These balls aren't landing. Guys are getting, he's getting picked a lot, and these injuries, these kind of come back for, like, it's the other side of the coin, and it'll be interesting to see how he, it's a league of adjustments. Mm-hmm. Everybody's adjusted to him. How is he going to adjust now that he's got to actually kind of for the first time make that real adjustment to the league, I think.
All right, one more NFL story we're going to cover here real quickly, and it involves a current NFL head coach, Mike Tomlin, who on the Dan Patrick Show this week, Carson Palmer, former great quarterback for USC, was on, and he was speculating and throwing some names out there because he's in the inner circle with USC. I'm sure they're consulting him for some of his opinions and some names that he might be interested in USC going after as their next head football coach, and the name Mike Tomlin came up. No one was really expecting that. So Carson Palmer mentions it on the Dan Patrick Show, and then it became a big deal. So later in the day, the reporters for the Pittsburgh Steelers covering the team had to ask Tomlin about it to get his reaction. Here it is. Check this out. Okay, so we got a little edit point here. We'll just We're live. Okay, yes.
So, okay.
Technical difficulty.
No, well,
I guess I'm used to thank you, David, for reminding me that we are live. Okay, imagine Mike Tomlin getting very, very defensive here. Okay, insert defensive Mike Tomlin. So did you see the clip? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, so he flipped out, basically. And he's usually a pretty calm and cool dude, right? So he flips out, seemed really offended, almost turned it into a racial thing, I think, because he ended up mentioning the coach for the New Orleans Saints, and he mentioned Andy Reid, right? And he said, hey, they're not talking about these guys possibly doing it. I looked at it completely different. I thought it was almost like a compliment to Tomlin. Like he's one of those few guys that has the personality that could be a coach for a team like USC, could recruit college players, could handle the LA vibe, right? The media in LA, and the fact that you have to be a star to separate yourself in LA or you got no chance. And he just took it the other way and was very, very much offended. And it's interesting just to see the national reaction to it. But, man, I took it as, hey, man, you know, Tomlin's one of those few guys that has those transferable skills where he could be very, very successful in college football as much as he has as a Super Bowl winner in the NFL. Did you see it like that? Did you immediately go down a different path when you heard him mention Sean Payton and Andy Reid? Because it was very strategic how he mentioned their names. Yeah,
I'm not sure the strategy behind that. I think he showed an emotion that he doesn't show all the time. I think you have to show your team that, like, you're not – I mean, the worst thing you could imagine – if I was on a team that was having its struggles a little bit and you find out your coach is, like, two-timing you and open to other conversations, like, that would bother me. So for him to kind of, like, ignore the question, I would be like, hey, so what's really going on? So maybe it was performative for his guys. But I tell you what, the top 10 college football jobs to me are the worst jobs. I cannot imagine. You know, there's all the stories of Nick Saban after winning the national championship, and the next morning on a flight to go recruit.
Well, he's making calls after the game, the night of the championship.
Like, think about how relentless that job is.
Yeah,
that it never ends, and it's as soon as you do the thing that's seemingly impossible to do, you have to do. The turnover is just so much. To me, it's like NFL feels like a much more.
Manageable.
I don't want to say easier, but I feel like
it depends what you're wired to do. Some people that don't mind recruiting. I think when Pete Carroll was a coach for USC, he didn't mind recruiting. I mean, he's a natural at it. He loved that, the energy and going in there and the competition during the week. I don't feel any sympathy for the coaches because you take a look at a guy like Ed Orgeron, the coach for LSU, that's fired for just being completely incompetent, catching lightning in a bottle with Joe Burrow and having a great season. But other than that, just a complete embarrassment off the field of what's been going on in his personal life and the team being mediocre when they have the best talent pool in the country that they can draw from. But he's walking away with $17 million. He gets to stay the rest of the season and essentially mail it in. Doesn't have to recruit because it's not his responsibility anymore. They're giving him $17 million just to walk away. Yeah. So these guys know what they sign up for. You can't believe anything they say because even if they say they're not interested in it, they generally are. I think Tomlin acted offended like, I'm above the college ranks. I am an NFL head coach who won a Super Bowl. How dare you insult me like that? So I kind of get it, but it's also a story. And if you're a head coach in the NFL and your name is brought up by someone who's in the know like Carson Palmer, deal with it. Stop being so touchy, so sensitive, so annoyed by it. That's one of the job requirements. Look at your job description. You have to deal with it. Have a little bit more dignity. Calm down, relax, be cool. Just like, hey man, not doing that. Appreciate you asking the question. But God, don't be so insulted and razzled by it.
No, I mean, it seems like It's weird how the rumor mill stuff really seems to get to a lot of guys. You know, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe you're so locked in that when you're just when nonsense is being thrown your way, even if it's somebody just throwing your name out casually, to see what makes certain guys go over the edge like that. It's interesting, man. It's theatrics.
If I was an AD and I would make my head football coach, probably my basketball coach too, I'd make him spend a little time with some politicians so they can really learn how to properly lie. Because they're the worst liars. I mean, they'll get in front of these TV cameras at press conferences when they want to deny that another team is interested in them and that they have no interest in, and they're just so bad because they go so over the top that it's just not believable. I mean, there's case after case after case of it, and they're all just full of crap.
Sure. I would love to see a chart, like a spreadsheet of all of the NCAA coaches or either unemployed coaches or current coordinators that are making multiple $1 million a year from their last job they got fired from. Whether it's like, the buyout, like Tom Herman, my guy over at UT getting paid whatever it was,
probably 10, 12, 15
million.
million.
It was crazy, yeah. And then, Charlie Strong is still probably getting paid over.
Oh,
so it's amazing what these opportunities are, because it's like they're.
Charlie Weiss was the worst. Right,
Oh,
Kansas and Notre Dame, or maybe the best. I think they owed him, between Notre Dame and Kansas, $30 million.
Yeah.
I think he made around $30 million not to coach. I mean, you're rewarded for sucking if you are a coach in the NFL or college, because these agents do a great job of getting that buyout negotiated. And the bigger job that you have, take a guy like Jimbo Fisher, the head coach for Texas A&M. His buyout, if he's not fired for cause, is $95 million. Now, they're never going to fire him, right?
I didn't know that number. That's incredible.
But, I mean, talk about when you have an administration, a university over the barrel. I mean, these guys have no shame. But why not? They can do whatever they want. And these presidents and the alumni are so strong that when they want you out of there, they'll just rally and write the check and do whatever it takes. But coaches are protecting themselves, saying, hey, man, if I'm out of here early, you are writing a very, very big check.
They're not just protecting themselves. They're protecting generations of their family to come. Like, it's insane.
You wonder, I mean, these guys, you can't get to that position and be that successful where you're a major college head coach that's in bowl games and fighting for national championships. You can't just mail it in. It's not in their DNA where they would just coast ever. But I wonder if anyone has, kind of thinking, I'm on the hot seat right now. I really don't care that much. It's human nature.
For sure.
Right? These guys aren't supermen.
No, I think, I mean, I think it's sort of like politicians, right? Like to get to a certain level in politics, same thing is like you have to be cut from a different cloth, right? So I don't know if, it feels like some guys have mailed it in, man.
They have. If we spend some time thinking about this, we can come up with a great list.
And I'm such a Longhorn guy. Like, I remember, like, when Charlie Strong lost to Kansas, like, that was the final nail in the coffin. It was like those last few weeks, man. It was hard to root for him because it felt like.
Well, it's inevitable, right? You could just sense it's a wave that's coming, and there's nothing they could do about it at that time. And I think they're very defiant right away. When they start having some conflict and some issues and the team isn't performing and they're feeling the heat from the media and the alumni, I mean, they get very combative, right? And they're fighting. But after a while, it's inevitable. There's nothing you can do, and they kind of take a deep breath and let it happen. Anyway, it's an interesting conversation because there's just so much money involved in coaching right now. I played Division I sports. You played college and professional baseball. For me, I never wanted to be a coach. It was never an interest of mine I wanted to go into the media, right? And I think you have to make that decision for yourself at a young age, and you're either a coach or you're not. I could never figure out with these college coaches, how do you all of a sudden get to a point where you can just scream at people all day long? Yelling at them and swearing at them and just belittling them. That was the thing that I could just never figure out. How can you just get that, just muster up the energy and the anger and the intensity that it takes just to get in people's faces all day long? I like being nice to people for the most part.
For sure.
I don't want to hurt their feelings.
You know what it is? It's their love language, man. It really is. That should be like the sixth, seventh, whatever the love language is. Because a lot of times, again, a lot of that's performative, right? Like, a lot of it is, this is how they communicate. Like, some of my best coaches of all time were absolute monsters with the like the mean old neighbor with the heart of gold, where like you'd get them alone, or you'd get them after the season, and they'd be crying and hugging and stuff. But they were monsters. So I think it's an interesting mindset. But I was the same way as you. I didn't baseball or sports in general. It was too hard, the training, too much going on to not get to play the game. Like I never wanted to coach because I didn't want to be at the field that long if I never got the opportunity to get back on the field and actually play.
Yeah, and watching that much film and doing everything that's required of being a college coach or a professional coach.
Sure.
You've got to have it in your DNA. You got to love it.
For sure.
It's a great choice, though, now because there's money. I mean, if you become, a Division I assistant coach, it's six figures for sure. And 25, 30 years ago, head coaches were making 300 at the most probably.
Yeah.
It's only been in the last 15, 20 years where these salaries are astronomical. But if you look at a guy like Nick Saban, he earns every penny of that $10 million.
Yeah.
Because look at how it's helped enrollment at Alabama, or just the national perception of a university can completely change based on their athletic program. Like you might think they're a bunch of hicks normally, but when Alabama's winning national championships, it's like you're looking at the baton girls and the dance line, and
for sure,
I want to go there. That looks like fun.
100%.
Right?
No, it's and just the fact that the kids are doing it now, right? Like late 20s, early 30-year-old guys are getting these head coaching jobs, even NFL. It's wild to see this shift, this sea change in what the sport looks like, and you get these young gurus. I'm blanking on his name, but the Rams head coach,
Sean McVay.
You get guys like McVay.
Started when he was 32, his first job, 31 or 32.
So you see a guy like that, and it makes sense why other organizations bring in these no-name guys that they. I mean, not that he wasn't had a name, but let's take a chance on somebody and hope we get lightning in a bottle like that.
Look at Sean McVay. His coaching tree is already more impressive than Belichick's. He's got LaFleur, and he's got the head coach of the Bengals, two guys, and his defensive coordinator last year is now the head coach of the Chargers. Yeah. I mean, he's got three former assistants that are more successful in the NFL as head coaches than any of Bill Belichick's.
Okay, so what does that make him a better head coach, or does that make Belichick a better head coach?
Nope. Good question. It makes McVay probably a better head coach, in my opinion. And it also just shows you the power of Brady, of what he was able to do to elevate everybody at New England when they were there. And then when they get off on their own, they realize it's not quite as easy as when they have.
Because Saban has that same thing, right? Saban's got that great coaching tree, and Jimbo was the first guy to ever come back and
win a national championship.
Beat the professor.
Oh, and beat him, come back and actually beat him. Hard to do. Lane Kiffin probably will eventually, just hasn't done it yet.
Yeah, I mean, at some point there's going to be.
Yeah.
I mean, you say the tide's going to turn, no pun intended, but like, how can you do this forever?
Well,
like, he's like the Brady, where it's like, how is this? How have we not figured out? 20 years of this.
Well, here's the difference with Bill Belichick. He doesn't have the say over his roster. Now, he does as an NFL head coach, but under different parameters. When you're Nick Saban, you just go get the best players in the country.
For sure.
And you've created the culture where they all want to go there. And he hasn't lost any energy or drive. If he were, and he's 70 years old, he's like in his late 60s, almost 70. His birthday's on Halloween. I think he turned 69 or 70. But the guy is unbelievable. You just can't duplicate what he's made of. He's just a special human being that just knows how to do it, and not an easy guy to play for. Right? No. So you have to make the conscious choice of go subject yourself to that for 3 or 4 years. But the great ones do, because they're automatically going to the NFL and they're winning championships along the way. Okay, final segment. NBA season is underway, Zach. You into it? Starting into it? You just following Ben Simmons, cheering for him, hoping that he can figure things out?
I'm getting into it. I'm transitioning.
Okay, so here's my question for the NBA. We're a week or so into it. Lakers are 2-2. They finally won a couple games. Speaking of the Lakers, LeBron James. And I'm asking this question legitimately. Is the NBA and playing for the Lakers for LeBron James a side hustle for him right now? Because you could make that argument that it just might be. Let's break down some of the other things that this guy is doing, okay? Spring Hill Entertainment, his media, he is a media mogul rising to the level that he is as an NBA star. His company that he owns with Maverick Carter is valued at $750 million. I mean, they do deals with every movie studio, all the streamers. They've got so many. They're doing an Adam Sandler movie that's coming out on Netflix. It's no joke. The content they're cranking out, and they just got a new investment that has valued that company at $750 million, and it's going to be $1 billion company here very, very soon. He's the number 5 highest paid athlete in all of sports, $91 million last year, but that's because of his endorsements, because he only makes $31.5 million playing in the NBA. So he's got the number 1 endorsement portfolio in the entire NBA. So he's got Spring Hill Media. He teamed up with Cindy Crawford and Arnold Schwarzenegger and Lindsey Vonn, and they have this health and wellness company that he's doing on the side. He's got the LeBron James Family Foundation. It opened their first elementary school in Ohio. So he's a social activist. He's helping out with the youth and in education. He owns franchises, Blaze Pizza. His investment portfolio is huge. Now let's look at what he's done in the NBA. He took last night off. I mean, not that he has to play every single game at his age, but that's one of the reasons I think he brought Russell Westbrook in, because you have a guy like Russell Westbrook that can make up the difference in the regular season. You don't really count on him in the playoffs, but it'll allow LeBron to take a night off or two. But even his performance as the general manager of the Lakers, which he is, he's the pseudo GM. Rob Pelinka's not getting anything done without running it by LeBron. We all know that, and I think LeBron handpicked that entire roster of people he's comfortable with. So you just wonder, is the NBA and playing for the Lakers third or fourth on his priority list and quote-unquote a side hustle for him right now?
I'm going to say no, but I also – because I think – and eventually it'll shift over, but at this point, a lot of his branding still depends on his success as a basketball player, right? Not everybody's aware of Spring Hill like they will be probably going into the future once he retires. But I do think he's in this part of his career where – I don't know – and just pulling this out on my backside, but maybe like Pete Rose, where he's like manager player, right? He's trying to he maybe he doesn't
without being banned from the sport.
Yeah. So yeah. Until anyway, yeah, it's that idea that like surround himself with great guys, like still win the championship, but not having to be the guy anymore. I mean, I don't know what's your take on it.
I think Laker fans are going to be really annoyed if this team isn't great, and I don't think they're constructed to be great. I just don't think they have the elements. I'm frustrated. I watch them and I'm going, they don't have a 3-point shooter. LeBron's their best 3-point shooter. They can't run. I mean, Westbrook has energy and he's all over the court and he's great, but he's not a prototypical modern day NBA player of what you're looking for. I just don't know. And then they had that little conflict they had last week on the bench where they're arguing when they're playing the Suns. They were down 31 points. We'll see. They're 2-2. But I think it's only human nature when you're a mogul like he is on so many different levels, and he just does not operate in the same solar system as we do. I mean, the ego that you have to have if you're LeBron James and you have so many people, you've only been successful, you've only done things at the highest level. No one in your life, there's no one around you, and that includes the commissioner of the NBA that can say no to you. Networks can't say no to you. Hollywood can't say no to you. Nobody can. So you're just going to, after being in the league for 17 or 18 years of being that big, you buy into it, right? And I think some things have to suffer. And I think ultimately we're going to see that the basketball is going to fall off. He's not Tom Brady. He's not putting everything into his number one priority, which is his basketball career. At least I don't think so, because how can you when you're involved in so many other things? But he's still great. He's still LeBron. He's still unbelievable, and you can't count out the Lakers because of him, because he still is in phenomenal shape and he can do anything on the basketball court. But it's just fascinating when you realize you never question Brady, like all the things he has on the side. You only think of him as a robot playing football and just being great. LeBron, he dabbles in so many different things that you just wonder, if you're a Laker fan, is that team going to be there at the end of the year?
Yeah. And to Brady's thing is everything that Brady seems to be doing off the field is directly influencing on the field stuff, right? The TB12 stuff, performance, health and wellness.
Good point.
So it all sort of reinforces that. But, you're right. A guy who's been the best basketball player in the world for his entire life, essentially, of course the focus might be on a day-to-day, the new exciting stuff. That's more of a challenge for him, right? Like, hey, Mav, what's up with the latest projects? Like, what are we getting pitched? I mean, seriously.
Is Adele coming over for dinner again tonight?
For sure. Like, I mean, there's got to be that natural curiosity and wanting to be the best at something. And it's, even though he still cares about basketball.
No, I got you. He could be on autopilot for basketball.
A little bit, yeah.
Right? You still got to train and do everything. But this other stuff is new and it's exciting and it's fresh and it's using different muscles and different parts of your brain. So I could understand how he's a little bit more into that because it's a little bit more fresh and exciting. The other one he's done. He knows how to do it. So we'll see. That's it. So, David, thanks for reminding me this is live and I can't just insert clips here in the middle. I'm going to figure that out here after being in TV for 25 years.
We'll get a sign. We're going to get a sign right above David's head.
Hey, Zach, good seeing you. The studio, every time I come back to Florida, man, things are just moving and shaking. Yeah. Valuetainment's...
for sure.
I mean, if you don't plug yourself in for 2 or 3 days here...
Watch out, Spring Hill. We're coming for you.
Hey, no joke.
Yeah.
Right? Anything you're working on that's super exciting?
Everything.
Just the day-to-day?
Yeah. It's an exciting place to be for sure. So many ideas and just being able to execute and putting together the right teams, man. I think high hopes.
I love the energy every time I come here every week, and every time I walk in the building, man, it's just fun. It's exciting.
Yeah.
The team that everybody that has assembled here is phenomenal. I'm going to be on PBD's podcast tomorrow, so looking forward to that.
Yeah. Excited to have you.
9 a.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
9 a.m. Eastern, 6 o'clock
Pacific.
Pacific.
9:03. Let's be real.
Whenever it does start.
Maybe.
And by the way, they just crossed 100K
Yeah.
for their podcast, so that's phenomenal. So, all right.
99th episode tomorrow, too.
All right. Okay,
Yeah.
well, I'm looking forward to it. I got a night of prep for that, my 30-page booklet to get ready
right.
for all the topics, but it should be
luck.
fun. David, thank you. Thank you for putting this together. Thanks to everybody here at Valuetainment. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, we have Phil Heath on Valuetainment Sports now, cranking out some awesome content too. So check us out. Subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you very, very soon right here on Valuetainment Sports.